10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello. It's so good to see you guys. This is Lori with the Capital Film Arts Alliance, bringing you another episode of CFAA Film Talk, where we connect you with some of the greatest creative people in our region, in and around our region. We're getting them from all over in the best possible way to keep everybody connected. One of these days we'll go back to, our in-person events, but for now, actually forever, I think. I kind of dig this. This is really convenient to be able to do something out of my own house and not have to drive anywhere. So anyway, we are finding all kinds of people to share with you, and I have this amazing opportunity tonight to introduce somebody that I've known for a very long time. So he's been involved in filmmaking and writing, distribution of his own content, and all the while as a full-time TV news cameraman at KCRA Channel 3 here in Sacramento, NBC affiliate. Anyway, if this is your first time and you don't know anything about the CFAA, so the Capital Film Arts Alliance is a nonprofit association that is here, and it's run by filmmakers and writers and actors and crew and people just like you. We are here to keep everybody connected, to advocate for local film, to really try and build this region and the industry here. And a lot of what we're talking about will keep everybody connected so that as we do that, we know we have an audience that we can reach out to when the opportunity arises. So with that said, we typically have membership, and that allows you to get into all of our events for free. But with the COVID and our webcast, we're not charging for anything, but we do take donations, and we do appreciate them. It doesn't matter how much. It's just the fact that you're saying, yes, I like what you're doing. We really appreciate that. And you can go to our website, which is capitalfilmarts.org, and there is a donate button there. And then whatever you can do, we dig it. And we always put it back into the community. So this is money that nobody's getting paid a salary. It's literally what more can we create that's going to entertain you guys and keep you informed. So with that said, one of the things we're going to talk about tonight is local filmmaking, but he represents an interest and a skill level in a lot of different areas too. So let me bring on our guest tonight, which is Mike Carroll.
Lori,
hey.
Hello. Great. Hello, other SAC filmmakers and anybody else watching.
So nice to see you. Mike and I go back quite a ways. I think so. I helped produce a film that Mike shot with Michael Dryhurst, who was an infamous filmmaker, producer in Hollywood and in Sacramento. So I got to learn a lot about his style and his skill, and I was always very impressed. And knowing anybody that has a full-time job and also has this reputation in the creative world, that's pretty impressive to me. So I like to follow what he's doing, and he's done some pretty incredible things. So what I want to know first and foremost, Mike, and I don't think I even know this, is going way back to when you first started, when you even thought about what am I going to do for a living. What was it that stimulated you and motivated you to get into these fields? And then where did your path kind of go from there?
Well, as a kid, I fell in love with movies, and I watched movies constantly, and then started reading about them, and then wanting to make them because it was just so exciting. And I inhaled movies all the time. And then in high school, they offered a class in photography, and then I discovered about photojournalism. And I discovered a couple of because I looked at the newspapers, and there of course there was Life magazine back then, and I was torn about whether I wanted to be a still photojournalist or or go into making movies, that was when way before the film schools even were known very much. And there were a couple of still photographers that just grabbed me, like Bruce Davidson and a couple others. And I was really leaning towards that. And I didn't go to college. Out of high school, I got a job in a camera store because I thought then I could, I could buy a camera and I could have access to stuff and I could start kind of learning my way in. And then it was at that time when I was 19, there was an article in the local paper, and this was in St. Louis, about that profiled 3 cameramen. 2 of them were local TV cameramen, and 1 shot for ABC Wide World of Sports, but he lived in St. Louis. And when they talked with the local guys that worked at like the ABC station and the NBC station, they both had started in like community college and then got an internship and then got a job in the mailroom. And then because things were union, they shot on film, shot 16 millimeter then. It was before ENG. And they'd work in the mailroom for 1 or 2 years, and then they'd go into the news department, and they'd be the guys that were developing the film that was being shot. But then they also got to shoot some film, they shoot some stories, and you'd learn on the job. So I thought that's great, because I could learn how to shoot film, and then I could also learn how to shoot movies.
Right.
And that was what I planned on doing. And I became good friends with the cameraman, but then video came out and everything changed. And ultimately I was stuck in the mailroom for a bit longer than I wanted to. I wound up going into the production department, which they called the film department, because back then movies and TV shows were still run syndicated on 16 millimeter. And I was the guy that would have to screen them, make sure it wasn't scratched or beat up. But also for movies, I would figure out the breaks that would go into for the commercials. And since we also had an afternoon movie between 3 and 5, I would get movies and I would have to put 10 breaks in, and it could not exceed.
He's thinking. Uh-oh. He's coming back. Well, we'll give him a second to come back. This is probably the most unexpected thing with any kind of a webcast, is that no matter how great your background looks, you still have the gods of the internet that can strike down at any second and knock you offline. I saw a recent, it was really very informative expose on how to, what equipment that you need for a webcast, but then the webcast kept glitching out. So it was, you can't spend money to ensure that, I guess. So one of the things that Mike is going to talk about once we get him back is, if you haven't heard of what he wrote a book called Naked Filmmaking. Basically, naked filmmaking was his experience of making a film basically as an individual, as a singular person. He is the cameraman, he is the boom operator, he is the writer, editor, post. Everything is done by one person. And are you back? I started talking about naked filmmaking because I knew that would be something that would, keep everybody engaged.
Yeah. It's much more interesting than listening to me drag up. Let me just finish. The one thing I was going to say about having to fit movies into an afternoon movie is that it couldn't exceed a total running time of 93 minutes and 57 seconds with 10 breaks. So any movie that was only 90 minutes long was easy. Chop, chop, chop. But otherwise, I'd have to cut things down. And the one that I always remember is this Elia Kazan, Kirk Douglas movie called The Arrangement. That was 128 minutes long. So I had to cut out 36 minutes of it. And I honestly think it was a better movie that way.
I'm amazed you were allowed to do that.
Well,
I mean,
back then and that stuff doesn't exist anymore as far as cutting movies. Well, now they speed movies up for time, and they have different channels that run things. But back then you had to cut it out, and then you'd have to put it back in.
Yeah.
But that taught me an awful lot about, well, how important is this? How is this relevant? Yeah, this interesting to everything else? Can you cut 20 minutes out and still, if you're watching it the first time, understand what's going on? And it's surprising how often you could do that. So I learned a lot about expedience and about what was important, what wasn't.
Right. Which is, that is editing is all about, you keep a pace, and that's a great way to train yourself for sure.
I found that, because I was thinking about writing and about shooting, but then, we're talking about when we made our film with Michael Power, that was like a 25-page script or a 30-page script. It was a 45-minute movie. It was a lot that we shot in a week and that I edited in a week. But it was a learning process. It was a big learning thing. Yeah.
You know what? I don't have a copy of that. Do you have a copy of that?
It's on YouTube and it's on Vimeo.
Really?
With all of the extras, right? Because I had extras on. There was a making of thing, and that said, and everything is up on YouTube.
Oh my God! Okay, great. So maybe we'll share that sometime. Yeah. Okay, so what else? Tell me where you went when you finally got to the art of cutting the crap out of everything and getting it online.
I needed, I still wanted to be a cameraman. I still wanted to make movies, but I thought TV news is a great learning source. And I'd read about a number of great cinematographers who'd started out shooting for news or bits of documentaries and stuff. So what I did was that I was told that St. Louis was too big for me to start as a cameraman. Other people had done, but they'd done it working their way up in shooting 16 millimeter and shooting little things. But then when video came out, things rapidly changed. And so they said, what you need to do is you need to go to a smaller market. Well, I didn't know what a smaller market was. So long story short, I sent out 50 resumes to TV stations and never got a word back. And then I started making phone calls. And TV back then, there was a ratings and source book that listed every station in the country. So I stole one out of the programming manager's office. And I started making calls to every station within a 50-mile radius, 100-mile radius, 200-mile radius. And finally, I wound up contacting a station after calling at least 50 that was in Wichita, Kansas. It was the fourth station in a 3-station market. And they'd just been bought and they wanted to do lots of changes, and they didn't have any photographers and they were hiring photographers. So a friend of mine, a great friend of mine who's still a friend, gave me some of his stories and I put him on a tape and I sent them in and he coached me on what to say. And because nobody was, there was a position that was opening and they'd offered it to 2 guys. 2 guys accepted it. And the next day, each guy said, change their mind. So when they offered it to the 3rd guy and he said his wife wouldn't move there, the news director called me and he said, the SOB won't come here, so what the hell, you got the job. That's my welcome aboard. I was the one person that would do it. And so then I did it, and I was terrible, but they trained me, and my news director also had not gone to college, and my chief photographer had not. So they both understood about just learning on the job. So that's what I did, and as I detailed in all this in my filmmaking thing, when people start out wanting to make a movie, they think they've got to learn everything and be good at it from the beginning. And when I got there, I didn't even know how to turn the camera on. So I typed onto a 3x5 card what you do. 1, turn on the camera. 2, get your white balance. 3, set your audio. 4, all of this stuff as you go on down the line. And I knew that I would fail if I tried to do everything at once. So every week I would focus on one thing. Like first week was just get the footage, have it not be green, and have there be sound. So you shoot everything on automatic. Next week I'd focus on like steady. So I'd shoot everything handheld, but focus on how to get it steady. Third week it would be do the audio, manually controlling it. And then another week would be about tripod. The last week, another week would be about lighting. And if you do this incrementally, you don't get good at it, but at least you learn how to do it. And you got a foundation from which you can improve. And then it would just keep on improving from there. And every week I challenge myself something else like editing, because we would edit our own stuff. And the first week was just edit and be sure that you could edit your 1.5-minute story in an hour. Then the next week, I'd say, okay, it has to be done in 45 minutes, but because of deadlines, cut it in 30. Next week, you're going to give yourself no more than 30 minutes to edit it, but have it done in 20. And just give yourself, it's like a stepstone, a pathway, walking up steps. And just every week, just try to get to another step and push yourself steadily to do it faster than you did before. And then after about 1 or 2 months, you're at least mediocre. You're steadily improving constantly, and you're not missing your slots. And that's the biggest thing in news, is that you're only as good as your last story. And if your story didn't make the air, that's not very good. And 3 times you're out.
Ooh.
So whenever you're going to do anything, like if you're a filmmaker, you want to make a movie, and don't start out trying to make your 2-hour movie. Start out making shorts, make short subjects. And as I detail in Naked Filmmaking, when I started wanting to do the independent thing, I got a camcorder and started out doing documentaries. And the first thing I did was I did a documentary about, my family. And that's the way to shoot, and then come out with an interesting way to edit. And then when I did one about, because we had family in New York City, and I was amazed to see someone walking like 3 or 4 big dogs. And I thought, I lived in enough apartments to know how hard it is to have a pet and rent an apartment. And I said, how can that person have 3 or 4 dogs? And so they're not his. That's his job. He walks them for people who are at work. So I became interested in that, and I wound up doing when we came back, I just profiled on dog walkers and about how that works. And that wound up, of all things, I had a friend who was doing the SAC Film Festival, and he was putting it together, and he said, how's your film coming? I said, I just finished a cut of it. I gave it to him on VHS. And then the next week he said, hey, I loved it. It's going to be in the festival. So that was it. And I thought, I edited this on a MacBook. I shot it on a camcorder. Yes, I had my microphones with me, but I didn't. I'd use the onboard, but most everything was shot with external microphones, a shotgun or lavaliers, and had wireless. And I was really concerned that it's going to play on the screen at the Crest. And I thought, well, it'll be on one of the little screens downstairs. Well, I got there that day, and it was on the big screen.
Yeah.
It's going to fall apart. And I sat midway so that I could just scrutinize the clarity of the projection. And I was absolutely dumbfounded. It was SD. The sound was perfect. And a week later, or 2 weeks later, they were running the restored version of Hard Day's Night in 35 millimeter. And my film looked as good as that did. And that completely transformed me. Then I thought, okay, this is possible. There's nothing to hold you back from wanting to do something. So yeah, as I'm saying, people should start out making a short subject. There are different festivals and where you can enter things, and like a place called Sacramento is one way, because you're going to get your film up there for better or for worse. And but you get to see it. You see your mistakes, and you can see where you can improve, and you can say, oh, that shouldn't have been in there. Tighten up, faster. It's 7 minutes long, should be 3 minutes long. Things like that. And editing is a good way to make your film look better, because you cut out whatever your flaws are, and that are at least apparent to you. And to submit to other festivals and try to get in. But the good, simple local ones, cable access is a good way in, or I don't know if they're doing that, but the Sacramento Independent Festival, the Film and Music Festival, when it was going on, that was a great way to get in and
just watch films too. I mean, I remember you even telling me that at one point. It's like, you become a better filmmaker just by watching other films. Well,
and that one film that you ran that I still watch over and over, the German-made film about the Israeli journalist. More than 1,000 words. My God, seeing him working, because I wanted to be a still photographer, and seeing what he's doing, and seeing that he would go across the bank into the Arab areas, and that even Yasser Arafat knew him, and he'd been allowed in to photograph him. That he had. I thought this is a really fascinating insight, that it isn't just this black and white situation over there, but things cross boundaries, and through being a photojournalist, shooting news, whether it's video or film, you get exposed to everything, and that's what has been my experience. My job has been my education. I've learned about the world and about things, and I've gotten to see things that nobody's ever going to get to see. I've been operating rooms. I've seen somebody's chest wide open. I've seen a dog's chest wide open. I've been in Folsom Prison in Vacaville. I've been in there without guards, where I was handed over to the prisoners, and I had to trust them. And that was an eye opener. And the guy who was our escort was a hitman.
Wow. This was at Folsom Prison or at Vacaville Correctional? Uh-oh. Okay. I'm not sure which one he was going to be talking about. He's gone from learning how to do the job, working in the newsroom, to covering. Are you there? Are you back?
I'm trying to get there. I don't know if you can see me.
Yeah, we can see you. You're freezing up, and so at that point, then
okay. That's my subliminal form of editing. Okay.
Hold on. What's going on? Okay. I think that fixed. Jesus. Okay. Continue.
Okay.
Sorry.
Are you there?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we're good. I don't know what was happening, but we got it fixed. Audio
All
feedback.
right, for another 5 or 10 minutes. So anyway, but yeah, and I detail all of this stuff in Naked Filmmaking. I talk about what I did, how I got started, very specific stuff. And for anyone who got the first edition and said he really doesn't know English, this is misspelled, these titles, not everything should be capitalized. I quietly corrected that in the past a couple of months ago, so I re-uploaded it.
Oh my gosh. Well, we
So-
did get a comment. So Kate Brolin said she bought Naked Filmmaking at J. Crawford Books, and it's a great guide for a newbie. So I just posted her comment so you could see that that's being mentioned. Yes.
I didn't know it was available in big bookstores. Wow, that's great. Huh. Well, I hope that it will help her. And, I was, at some point, I'm going to update it. Because I've gotten, this is the revised version. The first time around, I got a lot of very mixed and some unpleasant complaints, because I think people thought that I was telling them, this is what you have to do in order to do this. And that, I talk about sound and about wireless mics over boom mics. And they were saying that some people said that that's not what everybody does. Well, time has evolved, and boom mics are being used more because there's so much of a fashion thing, and also people are wearing tighter clothes. So there has been some evolution, but one thing that I did put in the revised version to make it clearer is that, what I'm saying is that this is not a how-to-do book. This is a how-I-do book.
Yeah.
Take or leave, throw out the rest, and also my book on TV work. It's just something that I found works, but you should use whatever works for you, as long as it helps you in some way. But I just don't want people to think that I'm telling them this is how you need to do something. But my biggest inspirations were filmmakers who were the hyphenates, who did that. One of my late friends, Russ Meyer, he, did everything the same way that I did. And he did it on film. And the great Claude Lelouch, who's a man and a woman, inspired me. He's his own cameraman. He would at least edit his early films. He always still operates. He writes everything. He finances on a studio level, and he distributes everything himself. And those are my heroes. It's not something that maybe everybody can do. And certainly when you're talking about a lot of money, that's a risky business. But as far as, I advocate about how to make a movie on less than your credit card limit. And, which now has gotten cheaper and cheaper since I first did it. I mean, now you could make a movie for $4,000 or $5,000.
Yeah.
A feature-length film.
I think the complaints came because they saw the title of the book as Naked Filmmaking, and they wanted to either see you naked or they wanted to figure out how they could take their clothes off and get the same amount of work done. So your misleading title disappointed people for all the wrong reasons.
It's a sexy title. And
it is a sexy title.
And you got to have a title that's a hook. And, when this came out, Robert Rodriguez had his book about El Mariachi. And that was a big title, and he did all of that himself. And so in mine, I needed to have a good title, because he already had a name and he had a feature and had gotten a lot of press. So I did some research on first words and titles that are the most popular. And the two biggest titles were Naked and Last. Well, I didn't want to be the last filmmaker, because that's not a very good thing. But Naked is good. Okay, that's good. And in the first paragraph, I do say that, if you bought this to learn how to make a pornographic movie, well, you could probably do that, but that's not what it's about. And that's not what it's sold on. But you got to have a sexy title. And in the 50s, Naked was the biggest thing. You had the Naked City, all kinds of things like that. And then there was the parody, The Naked Gun. But The Naked Truth, there was all of that sort of thing. So the idea being that you're peeling away the cover to get to what's underneath, to get to the truth. And that's what I was also trying to do, was that I was trying to peel away all of these different, all of the other books, with the exception of Robert Rodriguez, all stressed the crew level, that you have to have this person as the director, and you have to have a writer, and you have to have sound and editor and cameraman and all of this all the way down. And I think that that's an intimidating thing when you start out. And that
except you do need all of those things. You just don't, you do need all of those services, all of those functions but you don't necessarily need to have an individual person to do every single
Right.
thing. That's what you've proven, and that's
Right.
what people like Robert Rodriguez has proven.
Right.
I'm still on the fence about whether or not I think that, because I'm all, recognizing the value from the productions that I've, been involved in, the value in teamwork. So I always wondered, even though, yes, you can do all of that yourself, I don't necessarily think that that's going to give you the best end result. But what was your experience with that? Because you've been on both sides.
Well, I mean, through my job, I started doing news stories about people making movies. And I did a number of those. And the one thing that I rapidly observed was that generally they were being made by people that didn't know what they were doing. And there were people that were putting their heart and soul into it. And a lot of people that in Capitol Film Arts started out that way. But one thing that I quite often saw was that the last person to show up to help out on a movie was given the boom mic. And so they were recording the sound, but they didn't have headphones, so they didn't know what they were getting. And a lot of times there were people that were saying, okay, well, your job is to push the dolly or to do the lighting. But it was kind of the blind leading the blind.
Yeah.
And the miracle of that is that you'll get anything that when you're done is going to be any good. You have someone else editing it. And I can only say as a professional that I pity any of my fellow photographer editors that is given my footage to have to cut together into a news story. Because when I shoot kind of the old cinema verite style, that I shoot it and I go with the flow. I don't come in with a plan or an idea or anything like that. I just go with the moment, which I think is my attitude about news. And so I might shoot an awful lot of stuff. I might shoot 30 minutes to an hour of footage for a 1.5 minute news story. And other people have to wade through it all. Fortunately, we've got some people with great eyes that recognize good stuff. With me, when I get around to having to edit, quite often I forgot. I only think about what do I need next. And this is true when I'm shooting one of the movies too. Is that what shot do I need next? And once I know I've got something, I check it off the list and I forget about it. And I'm always thinking, what do I have left to get? And then when it would be time for me to sit down and edit, whether it's a news story or edit the movies, I have to look at all of the footage to realize, oh wait, there was that great moment there. Or if it's news, it's like, oh yeah, this happened here, and that was a really good thing, and I could use this. Maybe I could start the story out with. But I quite often I forget it, and then I come at it all with a fresh point of view. If I'm editing a story for news on the crash, where I've got 20 minutes to cut, my key is that I don't shoot a lot of individual shots. I might shoot with a rolling camera, with in mind that let's say it's a protest, which we're all familiar with them from news recently.
Yeah.
I let my shots roll a long time, and then when I'm editing, I'm thinking, okay, here's a good 20 seconds. I can drop in and cover this whole 20 seconds with that, so that I can rapidly edit a piece together. And a lot of times, if you see a story that's just a couple of interviews linked by long continuous shots, that's usually me, because I didn't have any time to put anything else together.
Do you always edit everything that you shoot? Almost
everything, yeah.
Oh.
Almost never do I not edit my own stories. That's kind of the thing, is that you edit the story that you worked on that day with a reporter, or if I'm my own reporter, then I'm doing the interviews and then shooting it and then writing it and then editing. Yeah. But yeah,
so you're full-time cameraman at Channel 3. We have a question asking if you're a full-time filmmaker, but you're a full-time cameraman at Channel 3, and you're doing probably a lot more of producing and everything at this point. I mean, at one point, didn't you have you shot it and somebody else, did the sound, and somebody else, it's like
In news?
hearing news from cameramen that are literally becoming producers and on-air talent in cases of having to step up to the mic and do something. So your job has really expanded in
Well,
recent years.
except for a short period of time when I worked in LA in the mid 80s, where it was, you had sound men and you had cameramen, but at the same time, Betacam was coming in, which was something where you didn't have a separate deck. It was all in one camera.
Uh-huh.
So that rapidly evolved around the mid to later 80s, where everybody was one person. Unless you're on a network level, you're gonna be in a crew. If you're working at a local TV station, you're one person. And unless you're working at a network station, say like KNBC or
Yeah.
KBC, where the editors are union, you're going to edit your own stuff.
Hmm.
A unionized shop, there are divisions. And I'm in a union. I've been in a union for ever since I came to KCRA in 1989.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
But we edit our own stuff. So I shoot and I edit, and I'll run a live truck, or now we even have portable remote units. We call them TVUs. That's like a backpack, and then I can walk around, and I'm only have my cameras hooked up to the backpack. That's how we cover a lot of these protests that have gone on since the summer, where we're out day or night. I haven't covered any of the night ones which have gotten a little crazy. But I've been out during the daytime, and you're out walking for hours. And
Right.
but that's being streamed to our website. But in which case, a producer is watching it and making notes of, oh, that's a good moment. We'll use this or we'll use that. And I never even get to edit it. And I never know what's going to run out.
Yeah. And is that something relatively new that you give that kind of continual coverage, continual camera coverage of these types of events?
We've been doing that with press conferences for a couple of years now, where we might air it live, or I'm feeding it back live to the station because it's too close to airtime, or especially with the governor during wildfires that we've had. Yeah, we'll break in and we'll just run a whole thing, or a crime situation where chief of police or someone is doing a press conference on some event that's happened. But this past year has been a completely different thing. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, you have. I know I saw footage. I see what you do all the time, but the footage from the fire, from the recent fires in the Vacaville Hills, and literally when it's jumping the freeway and you're in between, trying to capture footage. I was just so worried for you the whole time, because that's just crazy. That has been really dangerous. Are there other things that you've ever come up against that are that scary?
Well, first, let me say that covering a wildfire, I learned early on, because we took wildfire training, 15 years or something ago. And we do have some sort of fire protective clothing. The main thing is that we're wearing yellow jackets, so if anything goes on, you're seen. But I also have a helmet if I need it. But the one thing I learned, that if you're around a wildfire, let's say if you're off a road, if you're in where the trees are, that's dangerous. That's very dangerous. But if there's fire burning up around you and it comes up to the roadside, as long as you stay on the road, you're fine.
Yeah.
And when we have new reporters that come on, I say, look, if things get crazy, just go to the middle of the road.
Yep.
Roads don't burn. So when you talk about that, and I know what you're talking about, when the fire jumped 80, that happened right at news time, and it was on live. And the flames were very high, but I was on the road and I was on a bridge, so I know they're high. I'm fine. I'm perfectly.
John Jimenez wanted to say that live fire coverage was amazing. So he's speaking for lots of people, but I wanted to let you know he's online and he's watching.
That's great. That's nice. Yeah, I must say that over the past couple of years, as the wildfires have grown, I volunteer to go to them. And only rarely do you get to get close to them. But when you're around that, it's I've always been safe, but it can be quite thrilling to be around it. You know, it's as I tell people, it's the closest I'm ever going to get to seeing action. Yeah. And it is training. And I'll tell you about one time that was particularly thrilling, which was during some wildfires down south, and there was a house with a wooden fence right along the road in this area of terrain. And my reporter and I were driving back, and we saw just a little lick of flame along a dry hillside, and it was moving. And then we said, let's turn around and see that, because that's the only flame we've seen. And it had grown on the hillside to get to this wooden fence. And by that time, a little spot fire crew came along, which was largely young fire trainees, and the guy who was basically like the captain, directing them what to do. And the wooden fence caught on, and wood fences burn really fast. And they had a portable water trailer that holds 500 gallons, but they only had 250 gallons. And there was a house, and they had to control this fire that was raging with 250 gallons of water. And they did it and saved the house. They lost the fence, but they saved the house. And it was just like 4 or 5 fire people, including a young firewoman. And they were all trainees, and myself and a reporter. And I was moving around it like it was combat. And I was up there with them, keeping out of their way completely, because I know how to do this. But it was exciting to show these trainees that they saved this house in this moment of action. And I thought it really made them look good, because you saw what they were doing and they won. And that was a thrilling thing. And to be able to up there when they're saying, we only got 50 gallons left. Yeah. Guys, we'll use them. You know? And it was thrilling, but it was thrilling to convey that moment to the audience, what was being done by these, by pros and by, young people that are going to be, firefighters very soon.
And I was curious, it seems like you have a lot of autonomy, and whether that's just because you've been doing your job for so long, but from a TV news standpoint, do you determine, I'm going to capture this shot? Are you directed to that? Is it a teamwork where you're on site and you may see things that you weren't even anticipated, and you go?
No, it's totally, they trust us because we've had experience before we came here. So management has seen what we've done, and they saw that from the reel that we would have submitted to get the job. Yeah. So when we're in the field, and each photographer that we have is different and shoots things differently, and I don't have a good eye. I do not have a good photographic eye, but I can recognize action. And my thing is not so much, I don't like being on a tripod. It's like the movies that I've made. I want to get in there and document it, and hopefully try to convey this moment to you. I mean, a lot of times I do have to shoot on a tripod, but in a moment, it's really kind of seat of your pants. You're improvising. You don't know what's going to happen next, and you just know how to respond. And like when we saw that little wisp of flame, I said, let's turn around and go back and go by your hunches, and go with the moment. For me, that's the biggest thing. I read this, and I got this from Woody Allen, that when Woody Allen is making a movie, he would say that he starts out, he doesn't know exactly how it's going to work out. He never gives the actors any direction. He'll just say, okay, I want you to start here, and then I want you to end over there, because the camera's going to move along. But he doesn't tell them what to do.
Really?
And that it's sometimes he doesn't edit it all. Other times he may have some covered shots. But that they'll get there, and it's like, well, the light's really harsh, or maybe it's raining, or it's overcast, and he says you just got to kind of go with whatever happens, because that's what happens when you get up and you go out during the day. You go with whatever happens. And I found, when I read that about him, I thought, oh, that's just what I do, and that kind of goes along with that. You go with the moment thing, and as I've read about other journalists and and filmmakers, a lot of times they say that, it was the accident that came out, like,
yeah.
Like Ridley Scott, his early films, he was the camera operator. And there might be multiple cameras, but he would operate a camera. Now he has, 8 cameras at a time.
Yeah.
But if you've ever seen The Duelists, at the end of that movie is a shot where it's a period film set in post-Napoleonic France. And it ends with Harvey Keitel on a ledge of a river. And he's going there because he's just kind of gone through catharsis. And he steps up on this ledge and he's just going to look out. And the camera was supposed to do some movement that goes in and moves around his face. Well, as he stepped up, the clouds, it was an overcast day, clouds started to break. And then Ridley Scott said, because it was a silent scene, okay, Harvey, I want you to turn left a little bit and look thoughtful, maybe look down and stay with that. And he would be saying, okay, dolly me up, dolly me up, dolly me right, dolly, okay, pause there, slow. Harvey, start to turn away. And he would be directing him based on the sun piercing out. And he had his lens, and he was just adjusting this to the sun and moving it around. And then at the end saying, okay, now slowly pull me out. Harvey, stay just like that. Stay just like that. Stay just like that. And he pulled out. And it was this magic moment that anybody today would say, oh, they added that digitally. But it's at the end, and you listen to Ridley Scott saying this is the benefit of being a director operating their own camera when magic happens. Because you couldn't be directing this with everybody else who's looking through a camera. And he said, sometimes you get these accidents and you just got to go with them. And it's the most incredible end shot of a movie that you've ever seen.
I just wrote it down because I can't remember if I've actually seen it. It's sent,
you can probably see it on YouTube.
But I never noticed that. So I want to watch it and notice that.
That moment is probably on YouTube because there are all these different things. The cult shot. And also when he made Gladiator, he was one of the camera operators. And, I think he would always focus on the actor. And, he could tell when he was getting a moment. And he talked about his audio commentaries are amazing, especially his earlier films, because he'll give great filmmaking business advice, how he set up the deal, how he waited. The audio commentary for The Duelist is worth the cost of the DVD itself. I mean, I've listened to that at least half a dozen times.
Wow.
Talking about how he set up his first movie. He'd already done, a couple hundred commercials where he was the director and cameraman. And Michael Dryhurst was an assistant director on one of them. So he could know what this was like. Michael got a trip to Bermuda out of it, or Jamaica, one of those two. Got to spend several days just in Jamaica on a shoot that took half an hour. They shot it in half a day, but the actual shooting was only a half hour.
Wow.
And it was, there we go. This is the shot.
Oh, okay.
That's it. And
can
when
you play that and Mike can talk through it, or I don't know what we can do.
But you can see this magical shot happening. And Ridley Scott was just directing Harvey Keitel. There he said, okay, now turn around, just stand there and look off. And you see the camera is now pulling back and the music is coming up, and he was just directing it. And it was all in a moment, but it goes on for about a minute, or at least a minute long. It's spellbinding. And look, and now you get the flare coming through the zoom lens, and you can know it's a zoom lens because of all those different, each lens has a different flare.
Could not have planned for that. Yeah,
No.
Could not have planned for that. That's amazing. Oh, that's so cool. I always learn something when I talk to you about filmmaking that explores a whole deeper past side of previous filmmakers and what they've done and how they were affected and how it affected you. And so I think every time we have a conversation, I walk away going, I never knew that before, because
and YouTube is such a great source because there are all these, most of the DVD extras are on YouTube. And for me, the DVD extras of A Man and a Woman, where you see Claude Lelouch making this masterpiece, that the whole movie from concept to when it premiered at Cannes was 6 months. How they shot this so fast with so little money, and he was his own cameraman, and he had a camera, for instance, that it was so loud. In fact, He shot it with a camera just like this.
Oh, wow.
This is a 35 millimeter French movie camera that when you have it plugged in, it sounds like a coffee grinder. And when you watch the behind the scenes, you hear it. And none of the sound was usable. So
Isn't it all done MOS?
well, some of it, or it's added. That was done a lot. But he also came up with the idea that he got sync sound of this one scene, like a dinner scene, and also when he and this woman Anouk are driving, that the microphone was inside the car, but then the camera was like 20 feet away, and so through the windshield it was blocked. And there's another great scene with a lunch in a restaurant, and they're at a lunch table, and all the sound is real because it's with children, and you can't dub that. You can't dub it. So the sound was inside the microphone, but the camera was outside in the parking lot shooting in through a window. So he found creative ways of how to get around the obstacle of this camera. And when you look at these behind the scenes things, you can learn so much. I've learned so much from watching behind the scenes and seeing and having read, obviously, but I learned an awful lot, and that stuff is all available. And like Ridley Scott is a great source. The Claude Lelouch films are amazing. He does this one thing. He makes a movie every year, and he writes them himself. And the one thing that got me also is that he doesn't give his actors his lines. Like, he used to give his actors the lines the day of, and then they would but only their line, not the other actor's line, because he wanted the action and reaction. What he does now, and you can see this on there, is that he'll have these dialogue scenes with just two actors talking, having a conversation. But he'll have one camera shooting over one actor's shoulder, another camera shooting over the other actor's shoulder, so it's complementary close-ups. And Lelouch will sit in between the two of them with his script, and he will feed each actor their lines line by line. Like, he'll say, like with Jeremy Irons was in one, and now, ladies and gentlemen, he's there with this French actress, Patricia Class, this singer, and they're there, and they in French, and he would say, turn to Jeremy Irons, give him his line, and Irons would say his line, say, not so fast. Irons would do it again. Then he'd turn to Patricia Class and say, give her line. After a few seconds, she'd do a look and say her line, and then go back and forth. And I was like, I heard about this. I'd read this. I thought, no. But then I saw it. It's like, wow. Because he doesn't want them to know the end of the movie. He doesn't like actors to see the whole scripts because he doesn't want them to know in advance what's going to happen. So they never know who's going to wind up with who or who doesn't. They just know the idea of it. And then on the day, they find out what they're doing. And
so I'm curious, just in case, just anybody that we have online that's an actor, that to me, my OCD would go off the chart because I would not be able to stand not knowing the complete script. Is that something that as an actor you find would be challenging or interesting or absolutely repulsive? Is there anybody who has an opinion about that? Post a comment, because I'm just curious if that's something that actors, either absolutely hate or absolutely love. So Margie says, yep to loving it or hating it. I think, did we lose Mike again? I think he stroked out again. Let it go. Let it go. As an actor. Oh, hi, Bonnie. Bonnie Bennett online. Hi, girl. Bonnie says, an actor, I think that would be great. So I'm probably way too analytical to think that would be fun. Margie says, challenging but fun. I love improv and flying by my seat. So I guess I'm just not as adventurous as a producer as actors are as actors. But that whole concept of somebody making, movies without being able to read the script or delivering it line by line, I've heard of that at times, even with independent short film makers. That'll be something that they want to explore. Weber says lots of times they only see that one scene or shot, and it's good. So I have actually close friend of mine, TJ, hi, who does hair, and even doing hair and makeup, I'm always like, how's the script? And I'm always surprised when not only hair and makeup but crew I haven't even seen it. I haven't read the script. I've only read what I have to, and that kind of makes me crazy personally. But yeah.
I don't know that I would do that. I don't think it would be fair to the actors, because on the level of the movies that I'm making now, I mean, I think you could do that if you're paying people. Because it's a job.
That's a good point. I'll do anything if you pay me.
Yeah. But I mean, the movies that I've made, they've been art. They've been joint things, working with actors who do theater and are on stage. But a lot of times they would never get to see their performance, and they have nothing to show with people. And I have only done stuff. The movies I've made have only been with theater actors. They haven't been someone that said, "Oh, I'd like to be in a movie." But I take one exception. But the main actors are always people who have been in theater and usually know each other, and so they've had an experience being in lots and lots and lots of plays, doing lots of different parts. And I would give them the script so that they could see whether it's something they want to do. And because I don't, and when I do things, I don't improvise. Other people have been in movies where they improvise their lines or even made the whole thing up. And I haven't done this, not because I think I'm a good writer in any way, but I think that if someone is going to give me their time, and when I make a movie also, we don't shoot it over the course of a week like we did with Michael's film, but it may be done over months. And we might get together just once a week for an hour and a half or something. On a day off, and not tie up their whole day. It's less time than they would spend going to the grocery store. And but I want them to know what we're doing and not feel that they've got to also come up with a story, which is what happens when you improvise. Now, I would say that if I was doing a comedy, I would get people who are really naturally funny and very smart, and just like Larry David does, where they have the concept and they know what they're doing. But you can't write great comedy for great. Why write a comic script for actors who are funnier than the lines they're doing? I think then I would love to see what they're going to give. Now, of course, they've got money, they've got a lot of time, they're all professionals, so that's different. But for the kind of films that I've done and that my book is about how to break in and maybe get some recognition, find out what you can do. Maybe, and like there's a chapter in there about what are you doing this for? Why are you spending the money? What is it you want to do with this? Do you want to make a film to get into movies? Well, Joe Carnahan proved that you can do that.
Yeah.
Or you want to do this to see what you can do, to prove what you can do to other people or to yourself. Am I capable of doing this? Well, if you make a movie for $5,000, okay, it's $5,000, but it's better than quitting your job and mortgaging your house and to make something that's $100,000 or more, and then finding out that it's no good, that nobody wants to see it, or that it's just plain not a good movie. And then you're in the hole. Whereas if you make something like this way, okay, it's no great loss. And since we're on digital, all right, I've got the camera, I've got the laptop.
Yeah,
I can erase it and make another one. It's not going to cost anything.
Yeah, and you've been around like me. You've seen the evolution of going from 35 millimeter, 16 millimeter to literally, the invention or the introduction of digital cameras, and then the evolution of those digital cameras, and where
and
we
the
got
iPhone.
to.
My gosh, the iPhone is amazing.
Oh, yeah, honestly, you need a good story, and that's about it. I mean, a good story and good sound, which is critical to anything. But yeah, I agree. I think if somebody has, the urge to create something, run a test, do something first before you don't shoot your wad on your best possible idea, if that's going to take more of an investment to really bring to life. But teach yourself by doing something down and dirty and quick and cheap, and see what kind of lessons come up that help teach you.
And YouTube is a great opportunity. I mean, frankly, if I was doing a movie now, if I was going to start doing something, I would think of the movie, but then just shoot it in parts. Do it as a webisode, put it up on YouTube, see how it works. And even a couple of years ago, Sundance started a category for that, where they would give that, and then those people wound up getting, making things for Netflix and other things. But that's a way of doing something and getting immediate feedback, and you may want to adjust your things.
Well, we've gone from the technology being accessible and the creative, options being virtually as cheap, as inexpensive as they've ever been, to now we have platforms that at one point it was all like, okay, it's either got to be 30 minutes or it's got to be 60 minutes or it's got to be, under 2 hours from it. And now we have platforms that really welcome every type of different pieces of content. And whether it is something that is a single short that just is impactful, or if it's something that breaks out into pieces. And have become a huge fan of binging. Obviously all of us, who is not binging, for God's sake. But what I also find that I'm very judgmental of is whether or not something is shot with that intent. And when it is, it makes the whole experience so much greater than, if you're watching it a week by week kind of episode, and then they just throw it all together on a YouTube channel. I like to see that things are produced specifically for the platform. The cool thing is that you can have a 2-minute short that will get the kind of attention and get the likes and the clicks and the, viral following. And really that is only going to continue to evolve. So our opportunities as filmmakers just continue to grow. It's pretty cool.
And there's talent everywhere. It's like that kid who started making little clips. I can't remember his name, but he would do these, talk into the web, and he would do this crazy thing, and then he would make videos to go along with it, and he would get tens of millions of people watching. And then they gave him his own show and made a movie. I'm thinking, I don't know his name. Maybe it's John Spielberg, but something like, you can create a whole new career. I'd like to, because I showed you the Eclair, which I have not shot on anything because I haven't won the lottery yet. But I've shot on camcorders with the station. I shoot on like $40,000 or $50,000 news camera. Sony.
Oh wow!
But I've been doing a number of stories, and I'd like to show you my favorite camera.
Okay, what's your favorite?
The GoPro.
Oh,
with GoPros, and this is the new one. And I've done whole news stories where I'm the reporter, but I've done whole news stories on the GoPro, shot on the GoPro. And I will admit that, as I learned from an audio commentary with Ed Burns, sound is important. I just have a $130 digital microphone recorder that you can hide this on an actor, and then you put it in. And when he would he shoots his periodic indie movies. They put this on, and you can record, I want to say 3 hours of audio, depending upon the chip you've got in there.
Huh.
Each actor is wearing one of these. Typically, it's between 2 and 4 actors. They put it in, new battery, they start recording, and they don't turn it off. They just let it roll for 3 hours while they do all of their takes and shoot a scene out. And then it's all assembled in the editing. But you don't have to have a boom that way. You don't worry about shadows or a mic getting in the way. People can say whatever they want.
Is it easy to sync with the footage when it's continual?
Yeah. At the beginning of each shot, you can do a slate and that you can sync it that way. But you don't have to turn it off and on. Yeah. And the slate is just to say, okay, this is take 3, snap, so that you can link it together. And I do it, I just put my finger like that, a series 6 times, 10 times, whatever. And then we edit in Adobe, there's a thing for synchronize. I can put this down with a shot, do this, and it automatically synchronizes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but it's not an expensive thing. It's literally, I think I got $130 on B&H. Unbelievably perfect sound. And I'll link to GoPro, and the sound is perfect. Yeah. And the new GoPro, this is the 9. I got an attachment that this is they call it a media mod. So here's a microphone, and I used it for the first time with news on Sunday at a procession. And people were talking, and I put my big camera in the car, and I went out and I walked for about a block with them with this. And the camera was like this far away. Perfect. Heard every single word. And this is going to be my new favorite news tool. But yeah, and one thing I like to say about this is that I like the demystifying about movie making, because people think, oh, it's microphones and it's cameras and all. And everything that I've done my movies on, I bought at B&H, and I mean, yeah, one camera was $4,500, but it managed to shoot the movie, and it gave it a great look. And then I sold it, and then to Gary Nyland, as a matter of fact. Great guy.
Love him.
He liked the movie. He wanted to shoot a movie with whatever I shot it with, so he bought it. And but I do it with just consumer stuff. And the GoPros, I mean, you can buy it at Best Buy. You can edit on Final Cut Pro for $300 or on Adobe Premiere, and it's a monthly thing. My work, what I do on TV, is all done on Adobe Premiere.
Okay.
So a lot of what I'm doing, like when I do some of my own news stories, it's with my own gear to prove that you don't have to have a big expensive camera, whether you're shooting a movie or you're shooting a documentary. You don't have to have a big expensive camera.
Yeah.
You get a good camera. I mean, my God, the Black Magic cameras do unbelievable things, and you can buy for $1,200 you can get an unbelievable camera. I think a 4K camera. Then it gets down to the lenses and gets down to how many hard drives you need for all of this stuff. But but it's not like you have to go down to Hollywood and buy this stuff. You can get it at Best Buy. You can order it online, and you shouldn't be intimidated by it.
Yeah.
And it's very simple to use. I mean, this is all automatic. I just press it, and then it starts recording, and how it handles light and sun and all.
I don't know when you're thinking about retiring from your day job, but I would think that you would be able to teach a really great class in filmmaking and theories and things that are specific to the art itself and the history of film, which is, all too important for everyone to have knowledge of. And like I said, what you teach me every time we talk. So do you have thoughts about going into filmmaking again as either a distraction or a replacement for your day job?
Well, the replacement for my day job will be that I just turned 65. So I'm looking to when I'm not going to be working anymore. And I may do another film, but I turned 65. I still feel like I'm 64. I'm ready to keep on going. No, literally, I still feel like
65 is the new 45. So you've got 20 more years. And I say do what makes you happy. You know what? I don't care what it is, as long as you're happy. If it's your day job, and I think that, you know, you love your day job, you love what you do there.
I do.
So as long as you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life if you love it, you know?
I mean, I'm extremely lucky that, you know, I learned how to make my movies by shooting news and applying, because my news camera has audio, a shotgun microphone that's wild, and then lavaliers for interviews or whatever that is, and lighting and all. And I've inspired by my friend Russ Meyer, who was a World War II combat cameraman, and then started making movies in the 50s, and did them exactly the same way as he had been trained in the Army. With news, I'm in all kinds of situations, all kinds of weather, all kinds of places. So you have to learn how to be able to adapt. Okay, if it's raining, okay, let's shoot in the rain. How do we make this work? Or let's shoot under an awning. Or, well, with my movie, since we only get together for an hour or two a day, all right, let's shoot it next week. It's no big thing.
Yeah.
You know, it's not under a contest deadline, which some people will do. You know, it took me a year to get all of the filming done for my first feature film, and that was done over time, and then almost another year of editing. But you know, you do it with whatever is, you can get the best picture that you can, the best movie that you can make, the best way, and also about being the best person with the people that are helping you. Your actors who are being gracious with their time and that you know, express interest in the project and are committed to it, and so you commit yourself to them.
Yeah.
And by commit yourself to them, I mean that when you're doing takes, there will be flubs or there will be this or that. And on occasion, I have used a flub, but only in the most respectful way. That I thought, there's a nice reaction about this. But almost, you know, if there's any part where somebody makes a mess up or misses a word, I always make everybody look good. Everybody looks their best. I present everybody at their best. And I don't try to do anything that they're going to be embarrassed about or say anything, because they know what we're doing. And I respect them. And by doing this, they put their trust and respect in you. And that's a very important thing that you have to take to heart, that people are trusting you, and you have to prove that trust was not misspent in any way, that you're going to make the best that they can. And sometimes that means cutting out something, that cutting out a scene or cutting out lines or cutting a scene down from one thing to something else, because it wasn't working one way, and then realize maybe it's better just to get the looks, and then it becomes more cinematic.
Yeah.
But just try to be honest with everybody, make them look the best, and be so respectful of them. And I also learned if you get good actors, then they bring in a good thing, and if they bring in something good, just leave them alone. Just let them do it, because they're giving you their talent. So let's see what their talent is. And I learned not to say very much to actors. Go with their idea. If it's not exactly it, the most I'd say is, how about a little bit less, or what if we did this, or let's try it without that line. And then by shooting it yourself, you can adjust. Like, I shot all of my movies handheld. I didn't do tripods. I didn't have fixed angles and all. I tried to go with the flow of that, and it gives it a documentary sense, a sort of reality. I like to shoot something on a tripod, but then you get into a situation where you're confining the actors, and by being handheld, I can respond to that. And that was my ethos when I made my films that way. And also, you can shoot a lot faster, and you can take up less time. Yeah. So I try to be very respectful of their time and their talent.
Yeah, it's actually cool that the station allows you to use the equipment that's not necessarily in their standard, because you're proving to them what you can do for so much less, and and you can be so much more fluid. And if they were way too rigid, they would never even get that. I mean, they should be buying your equipment, but regardless.
My first GoPro was given to me by my sister, and I was curious about it. I thought it was a joke. I thought, because I just saw people would do things like
little tiny.
Yeah, put it there. Or, someone opens the refrigerator to take out the milk, and the camera's in the back, and they reach in, or and like with food pantry stories, you see a lot of food pantry stories, and you'll see the shots where the camera's in the bottom of the bag as people are putting in or taking stuff out, or doing a story about a mailman and the camera's inside the mailbox. And I just think, I first thought of the GoPro as a gimmick camera. And then when my sister sent it to me, and I saw the different, you can change the width. You can make it super wide or narrower. And then I started to see that, but the wide and the way it handled light in an automatic setting, the minute I saw what it could do in a wide angle, quite honestly, my mind flashed to the first time that I saw Patton, which was in its first release in 70 millimeter on a Cinerama screen. And that movie was shot with new lenses and a lot of wide angle lenses. I was not used to seeing a movie, much less a war movie, shot with these big wide angle lenses in 70 millimeter, crystal clear on a dynamic screen. And it's the first time that now, when I started to hear the word immersive used with 3D, it was an immersive experience for me. And when I started to see what I could get with this GoPro, with that lens, it's like I flashed back to Patton. And I started to see, this is not a gimmick camera. This is a primary camera. And I decided when I use it in my news stories, I don't use it in any way as a gimmick, but I use it as a tool that, this is what's getting everything. People will notice when you're using a big news camera. They're very cognizant. When you're using this and you're in a crowd, nobody looks at you.
Yeah.
You can be really invisible. You can be closer to the true cinema verite and that dynamic perspective. And the way it can capture shadow and still have the sun in the shot. And it handles all of it. It doesn't blow it. It is a magical camera. And I treat it as a serious film tool.
Yeah.
And it's not a matter of the people at the station saying, oh, Mike's using his little toy camera. I've used it, and the producers all say, oh, more GoPro. The more GoPro I use, and that other photographers are using as well, and the way the other guys are using it, I learned from. I'll tell you a secret is that, when we're doing stories about real estate and home values, and whether, like when we had the bust in 2008, and lots of houses were foreclosed on, we had lots of shots about houses and real estate. And one thing I am not good is shooting buildings. I'm not good at shooting compressions, because you don't want to isolate one house, because then whoever lives in this house is they're the subject of what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So when I shoot, we call it real estate, establishing shots safe a neighborhood. You have to shoot down the street, so there's lots of houses. So you're pointing one. And you can do that in telephoto or in a wider thing. But one thing I learned from one of our photographers, Brandon Atchison, he was talking about all of the apartments and the housing situation in Midtown. And typically it'd be, okay, the camera's on a wide angle looking down the street, this or that, up angles. This guy put his GoPro on the side of his car, shooting up, and drove down the street. All these traveling wide angle shots of buildings, apartment buildings and stuff. So it was talking about everything. I thought, that's genius. And it looks cool. And the more you can make something look cool, the more the audience is going to respond. Because I always watch it at home and it's like, that's cool. I wanted more shots like that. So this has become my go-to GoPro camera.
You should be doing an endorsement and getting paid for it for GoPro.
Well, if I did, then I couldn't use it, because I'm going to be paid. So I can't do.
We have a question. Steve Orsino wants to know, what are your feelings on the use of anamorphic lenses?
I like anamorphic. I love that thing. I mean, I was the first guy at KCRA to do a story in letterbox. I was doing a story about student filmmakers, so I did it all in 16:9 back when we still had square TV. I love the widescreen. I love what we've got now with 16:9 screens. Ironically, one of the best movies I've seen filmed in recent years was Ida, the movie in black and white. That was shot square. So it's like, God, now I want to shoot a movie square. But I love widescreen. When I made Year, I shot that with an anamorphic lens.
Oh, I was trying to remember the name of that one. Yeah.
Yeah, I shot that anamorphically, so it was squeezing. I had to unsqueeze it. And it was a $800 slipover lens, but I couldn't zoom very far, or else it would get. It was like looking through a lot of glass. And then I decided, how does the digital squeeze going to be? So I wound up switching to the digital squeeze. I sold the wide angle, the 16:9 adapter, and I switched in because then I could zoom in all the way. And because I didn't want to be in close on a face for drama. I find drama fiction is better done in telephotos. Yeah. You can isolate a face because for me, the production value, when you're making an indie movie, you're shooting in people's houses and you're shooting on streets, and you've got to be careful about signage and all this and that. And with an indie movie, the greatest production value you have is your actor's face. Yeah. And close-ups are the best thing. You can just a close-up on one person, as maybe they aren't saying anything, they're just listening, or they're in a situation, and it's like through their eyes, the actor's eyes, you find out what they're feeling and thinking, and that's to me. And even in a big movie, a big Hollywood movie, most movies are close-ups. So I find that to be really powerful. And then when I did Year, this is the trailer for Year.
Oh, okay, great.
And but
talk a little bit too about how you made this, because it's an interesting concept of.
Well, this was my first movie feature, the first movie that I made after working with Michael on his films. Was I didn't want to make a short. I had this idea for a film. That's a family of sisters, and each sister is the same mother but different fathers. So this way they didn't have to look alike. And one of the women is Catherine Papa. She's Filipino.
Yes, she is.
Yeah, Catherine. And then there's also, I'm sorry, I'm terrible with names right here. She's Hispanic. So that'll matter. I would like to have had someone African American, but I didn't know any actors, but I knew these actors, and I didn't cast them. I started out with a couple of parts, and then they cast each other. Said, "Oh, I know someone who would be good for this." So they worked with friends, because friends like working with friends, and that worked out. And my concept was that I wanted to go from one new year to another new year. And what happens in the lives of this family? Someone's sick and dies, and then someone's relationship falls apart. But the one thing that everybody's doing is that it's the same thing about life. Everybody is looking for love. Whether it's a daughter for a mother, or either she's young or she's older, or all of the sisters, their mother. Everybody's looking for love. And that's something that I think is a common universal theme in all movies and in
Yeah. And the interesting thing was that you filmed this within a year. So you didn't shoot this all at the same time and call it a year. You literally took a year to film all of the sequences and to keep all of those people wrangled into a production for the timing of the entire year, I think was probably the biggest difficulty out of everything, Well,
the hardest thing of the whole movie was the New Year's Eve party, because that was the one day that everybody had to be in the same room. And how am I going to shoot a New Year's Eve party? Because they're all actors and they're all in shows that night. So, so the one thing was that if someone was going to be in the movie, we'd like to film in your house or your apartment. That would be a set. And that was the case in most cases. We filmed in our house, Bonnie and I, we filmed in our house. And when we did that one scene of the New Year's Eve party, which it opens with, and it was 15 pages, a lot of it got cut down. What I did was that the weekend before, had the main actors come over, and over about 1 or 2 hours, I just walked them through what everything was so that they would have an idea in their head, whether they would remember it or not, but of where we're going to do this scene. So they could have some concept of the physicality of it.
Yeah.
And then we put out a call and had extras come in. And a couple of the people that I worked with came in and they were extras. But then when we shot it, for 2 days beforehand, I had gotten cardboard and tarp, and I blocked every window. And then we shot it starting at 9 in the morning, and we're finished by 4 in the afternoon in July. But with the lights out, you couldn't see your hand in front of your face. So all of the party, the New Year's Eve party, was shot on a Saturday afternoon, the one day when I could get all of the actors, but also the actors were almost all in shows that evening. So I had to stagger them when their times were that, like one said, I have to leave at 2:30, other was 3:30 or 4. So I had to organize their scenes and shoot everything in that day, in that part, all the sound. And I did have, that's the one time where I didn't use body mics. I used booms, 2 booms. And I had
Did you have any crew? I can't remember if you had crew on that.
One guy crewed with me.
Okay.
And then, another friend from the film group came and shot behind the scenes, which was great. And Dominic Burnell, who I had profiled him in a story on high school filmmakers. He was interested in that. And we'd stayed in touch. And I said, how would you feel about helping me out on this? And he came in, and then he wound up helping me for a couple more weeks on shooting. But on that, because it would take too long to keep changing the microphones, I would have a boom pole on a stand pointing towards one actor, and then Dominic would be hand-holding a shotgun mic on the other, so that then I would have 2 channels of clean audio. And when I had groups, I would have people, like 3 or 4 on one side and a few others on the other side, with a microphone on each side. So, because if you point a boom pole in only one direction, the sound over here isn't as good. So this way I was covered on each actor. And if they were close together, it was just one. But,
yeah.
And it was handheld so I could move quickly. And I also had a small TV screen monitor on a C-stand on wheels, so I would move that around with me to make sure that how it was looking. And I was really looking at the monitor when I was filming. Right. And that moved very fast. And they were theater actors, which the thing that's so great about theater actors is that when they show up, they know their lines. Mm-hmm. I've seen enough times with actors who wanted to act, but this was their movie. They didn't learn their lines ahead of time. And with theater actors, they always come, they are always prepared, and they're always fluid and adaptable. And since these actors had all worked together, they already had a relationship. So you already had that friendship bond. They'd acted together. So that made it so much easier. And since I had so much to shoot and they were trained, I had to trust them. And the most I would do a couple of takes, and I just say, okay, let's bring it down a little less. And by this time also, we'd already been shooting for a couple of months. Mm-hmm. And my experience is that when you work with theater actors, they're used to doing one thing on the stage, but you have to get them comfortable. So on the first day, I might do 10 takes of maybe just pouring coffee. And I say, the one thing I don't want to see is acting.
Yeah.
Just be real. And that's the hardest thing, is to get actors not to act. But then once they got into that groove, by the time we shot this scene, they had pretty much had it down. And then I just would do multiple takes to get everybody down to the same level.
Yeah.
But and then I would shoot scenes and they say, okay, thanks. And then they would leave. And I would isolate it down to the people that could stay and shot their scenes last. But we were all done at 4:00. We started at 9, went to 4. We had the back studio where people could go in between. We had food there that they could eat throughout the day. There was a bathroom there. And and when we were shooting the scene of the party, everybody had to take their shoes off, except for the wide shot, so that you didn't get any clicking of heels. I had to think ahead to the things so that we could get this done efficiently.
Yeah.
And it becomes very, very practical when you do that.
So have you done any drone photography at all?
No. Because you have to have an FAA license.
Yeah.
And with KCRA, we have some people who are licensed, and they fly only the station's drones because they're covered by insurance.
Yeah.
And they've gone through things, and they have various policies about when you can use a drone, when you can't. You're not going to use a drone, say, during one of these, like their events with, say, like before COVID, almost every Saturday or Sunday, there would be an event at the Capitol or at Land Park where people are doing a march for cancer, a march for this, a march for that, a fundraiser. And some people from the other stations I will see have drones going over. Well, we do not do that, because if there's a problem and the drone falls and it hits somebody, that's liability. So you have to think about what's a safe place where I can use a drone.
Yeah.
So you have to think about insurance liabilities. And so I'm not going to do a drone until I've taken that, the FAA thing, and that everything is pre-approved when you take it up. There are certain elevations that you can take it. There are areas where you can't use a drone at all. And it can be a federal break federal law. So no, I'm not going to do that until then. Recreationally, I mean, I could do it in my yard. I could do it in a friend's yard, stuff like that. But you have to be careful if you've got a camera that you're shooting over into someone else's yard, because that's a privacy thing. So there's a lot of things you have to take into consideration, because you don't want to get your neighbors teed off. And let's say they have a swimming pool and they're having friends over, and maybe it's a hot day and they don't want to wear their swimming suits. Well, you got to you respect that. Hey, it's California. The privacy fence is up for a good reason, and you have to. And I'm very cognizant of privacy. Yeah, when I do anything,
it's very restrictive, but it's also bitchin' footage. I mean, I love when it can incorporate into all of your other footage that you're capturing. It can just give this whole world approach.
Exactly.
I love it.
Well, a couple of our photographers that do it, that have it, they've gotten, especially say up in Paradise, using it after the fire, seeing the devastation. I mean, that's unbelievable, seen from above. And it's great because in a helicopter, you're always moving. But with a drone, it can be perfectly still. And it's something that we see all the time now in movies, is that big high shot following a car, driving up a road or something like that. It's incredibly powerful. And I would love to get into that, because I love that epic cinematic effect that you can incorporate.
Yeah.
At the same time, whenever I do it, it'll be, I'll do it responsibly and very cognizantly of where and how to do it safely, and in a public area where, it's okay to do. When I'm shooting news, I always have to be careful about how I'm shooting something. And sometimes people say, look, this woman over here, she's really nice, but she has Alzheimer's, and we'd rather you didn't shoot that. It's like, of course not. Yeah. So we have, I do that in news, and I would do it if I was shooting a film too.
Yeah. All right. So what are you proudest of? What, whether it's a scene or whether it's a project or whether it's a career direction, what in your life do you look back on and you go, oh my God, I'm so glad I was part of that, or I made that happen?
Oh, well, when I grew up, my dad was a car salesman, and he was a very good car salesman. He was twice named the best salesman of British import cars in the country. And he wanted me, he saw me with a camera and he thought, oh yeah, you do that and take pictures and you got to have a job. He wanted me to be a mechanic. Well, I don't even change my own oil. You know, I had trouble putting on the windshield wipers this morning. I had to get a guy to fix it for me. Yeah, that was not going to be me. But when I took that class in high school, we had a chance to go to WashU, where there was a work thing, and a guy from one of the newspapers came, and he brought his pictures and he talked about what he did and how he did it. And I knew then that, you know, he just kind of fell into it. I thought, you know, I want to make my living with a camera, whether I'm a still photographer or in TV news or whether I can get into making movies, but I want to make my living with a camera. And I've wanted to do all these different things, and I've managed to. You know, I've managed to make some of my films. I've managed to get into some really nice film festivals. I got some very complimentary reaction from Variety, and was called by Tom Hanks' company. They liked Year. They were very interested in what we had done, and they also, one thing they liked was the diversity, and that's one thing I wanted to put more of when I made the next film, Night Beats, which was as much, I wanted to make a film that was shorter with a smaller cast, fewer people, but I wanted to do it entirely at night. So that was a challenge because I didn't feel confident in lighting. So I had to teach myself about lighting. And my key about lighting is, you know, I don't want to see the lights. My favorite cinematographers are the ones where you cannot tell where the key light is, and where, you know, that when they set up a scene and it's night, you think, wait, where are the lights? That's one of my things. I don't like seeing the perfect hair light on all this stuff. But yeah, it's that I wanted to be able to do that and prove that I could do it, and simpler, smaller, and by a certain ethic going in, and that I could also be more efficient. And then the past couple of years, I really focused on my job, and they allowed me to start doing stories on my own without a reporter. And I pitched it because a lot of that's when the downturn was going on, and a lot of the stations were cutting back on photographers, and there at the other stations in town, they were giving reporters little camcorders and saying, you're going to do it all yourself now. And I'd done that before as a challenge to myself when I worked in Wichita. And because I'd seen reporters out shooting their own things, I thought that's one man film. And so when the downturn happened here, I went to my news director and I said, you know, I used to do this and I would like to do this as a reporter. You know, there are going to be times where you may be doing cutbacks or someone calls in sick. I mean, we could have a flu and a lot of reporters short. Well, I could go out on my own and I could do something. Mm-hmm. And, you know, we could be doing layoffs here. And I want to be able to be the one guy that can teach the reporters how to shoot. And my news director at the time said that the corporation I worked for, Hearst, was not going to do that. They weren't going to go the one-man route. I said, well, okay, that's fine. But you could get a memo this afternoon and everything changes. So I would like to be ready and like be able to do that. He said, well, pick a story and we'll give you the time to go out and do it. And you can put it together. And if it turns out okay, we'll air it. I think he did this kind of thinking dismissively. Well, I did it. And he looked at it and he said, we're airing it tonight.
Wow.
And then aired, he came down the newsroom into the editing room where I was working on a story for 6, and he high-fived me and he said, anything you want to do is good with me. And I started doing it. And he said, you want to do some other features? Because the first one was a feature on Greyhound rescue. And I said, yeah, I do have an angle. I want to do it about small businesses and what they're doing to survive in this bad economy. And
whoop. I wonder if we have that on tape. Reggie, let's take a look at a clip that Mike has that we can share, talking a little bit about or showing an example mainly of what he's doing. Oh, there you are. You're back.
My Wi-Fi. I think I've got a Wi-Fi problem.
Can you hear me? Mikey there? Oh, there you go. Okay. I was going to have him show a clip, but I wasn't sure what would be like, the best clip to share.
What? There's one on there about Royal Gorge and cross-country skiing. That's on there. That is on YouTube. If you can click on that, because that I shot with the GoPro and with a little microphone, so you can see a bit of what I'm talking about.
And is this one where you did everything yourself, or you had
everything? I'd been there once before when there was not much snow. What is this one? Oh, this is a different one. Or is this? Maybe it's coming up. And I'd been there once before with a reporter. And anyway, we'd had that winter or a couple of winters where there was no snow, and finally there was just tons of snow up there. And so I called. I said to the station, I'd like to go up because anything in the mountains, anything with snow, anything in weather, they like to see if it's raining or snowing. So I pitched them, and they said, yeah. And I called up, and they said, yeah, come in. So I went up, and this is the first story I did up there. I've done two. The interviews are shot on my news camera on a tripod, but then the other skiing shots are done on my GoPro. I'm just locking up, but you can see. I post all of my own stories onto YouTube. You can just put in Mike Carroll KCRA, and you can see them. And stories that I do with reporters that turn out especially well. But this is one like that I did, and it's, to me, it's where I put a lot of my work into, or my focus recently is, I look upon them as mini films, as documentaries. For instance, I stopped shooting news as news a while back because you can shoot. There's a format for shooting news in, and I find it's uninteresting. And I think news is not just what's on this day, but that you're shooting documentary stuff of what today is like that could be pulled up years or decades from now, looking back on a time, and certainly what we're going through now with COVID. We're in completely uncharted territories as far as us covering. I mean, I haven't missed a day of on the job ever since this thing hit. We've adjusted. We've had to change how we do things, but we're still out there, and we have each of us in our news car has a laminated letter from that was sent out to all news organizations from the Department of Homeland Security, saying that we can go through lines. We're authorized to be out. If they have a shutdown that, like for a time, you couldn't go up to Tahoe. But being news and having this pass, I could go anywhere. It's kind of the golden ticket, and it's a chance to go. And as I said, everything that I have learned really about life, I have learned on the job by being there. It's the job that most people have jobs where you work in an office or you work in a certain thing, but I get to go into all the offices. I've done one-on-one with every single governor. I've been at press events where, like during our wildfires when Arnold Schwarzenegger was the governor, where there had been so many press conferences that I was the only news crew there, and I was the one asking, the governor the questions. And I must say that, Arnold, I didn't vote for him. I'm a Democrat. But I always liked him. And he is the most gracious of all the governors that we've had.
Really?
He is so good. I mean, every time I was around and someone asked him a question, even if it's a question that he didn't want to answer, he would always say, "Thank you. That's a very good question." And recently, when Governor Newsom was touting some of the new firefighting planes that he'd gotten through a grant from the feds to be able to buy to expand our firefighter fleet. uh, he had invited Governor Schwarzenegger to be there. And all of us were around, and Schwarzenegger was up there. And one woman asked kind of an unflattering thing, and I can't remember what it was. They said, "Does anybody else have a question?" And I said, "Yeah, I do." And I said to Governor Schwarzenegger, "I just wanted to ask because I saw firsthand how you were dealing with a summer of fires that just went on and on and on, and how you were always out there." And the first thing that he would always do was he would go and he'd meet and greet and shake hands with all the firefighters before he would do his press conferences. He had to wait. But I said, it was so impressive to see you coming out and your commitment to these men as you still have. And I was so impressed by that. I just wanted to ask that your feelings now seeing, did you wish you could have had this support from the feds at that time to be able to expand the fleet of bombers, to be able to combat the fires, to have the kind of air armada that we have now? And he said, that's a very nice question. And you fight a battle with what you have at hand, but it's good to see that Governor Newsom is getting more tools for the firefighting fight that he's having to wage now. And he said, I congratulate him, and I congratulate the feds for doing this. And he was very nice, and he's always incredibly polite and smart. And
I had high hopes for him in support of our, film industry when he came into his governorship. That was at a point where California was losing its foothold on the film industry. The production was going everywhere, and I thought, okay, here's somebody who gets it, and he's going to come in and he's going to see, what can be done in Sacramento. And it was so completely opposite. And I think for many reasons, I mean, honestly, timing is everything. But I remember being sorely disappointed because we were so ready as filmmakers and as an organization, because we had the CFAA, up and running there. And the people that I knew that were so talented that needed to be challenged and have those opportunities in their own community. And I was, disappointed for a while because of Schwarzenegger. And when we then had, Kevin Johnson as the mayor of Sacramento, and the efforts that we made for several years to build the film industry locally. And that, kind of fell on its face after a lot of work by a lot of people. And you, like me, and like the CFAA, have been around through all of that. So we're at a point now where I'm so excited about where we can go in our industry, what we've already done. It started with Joe Carnahan, honest to God, when he went from Channel 31 to making a film that got into Sundance. And then
he inspired me. Yeah. I was at that first screening of his first movie.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
The station had said, hey, Joe Carnahan, I didn't know. And they said, oh, he's made a feature film. And he's going to run it at the Comedy Shop. You should go tonight. So I went, and I'd seen enough locally made feature films in Kansas, wherever I've been. Yeah. And usually they're, okay, a locally made film in Kansas. Not saying anything about Kansas. I mean, Carnival of Souls is amazing. But usually that's not the case. And when I went to see his, in the first 30 seconds, my jaw was hanging open. Blood, Guts, Bullets, and Octane, I think, is one of the greatest first self-made indie movies. Yeah. And I mean, look at the career he's gotten. But that was rare and a privilege. But you get to see those every now and then. And through the film festivals here, I got to see that, see different talent, like how I met Anthony Dwan and Galen Howard. So many.
You were. So this goes way back. Jimmy Bell, who is one of the most sought after sound guys in the world anymore. My God. His very first gig was on a film that I was co-producing, and we were scrambling to find sound guys, and we couldn't find them. And he ended up he lives down the street from you, right?
He used to live around directly on the other block. Yeah.
Okay, so he knew you, and he ended up borrowing equipment that you
Yeah.
had to be able to do sound.
Yeah.
His very first gig was on that film, and for him to go from that, having to borrow equipment and kind of juggle his way through it, to someplace that he is now in his career, both you and I, every time I see him or talk to him, he relates to that and is thankful and grateful for what.
And he's still the same guy. He's so positive, and that's one thing. It's in the book about thing when I met him is that I was doing a finishing up year, and I needed some sound of leaves, and I was Leon Corcus had loaned me this one incredible microphone, which I've since bought a copy of. It's a Sennheiser, I think 816. It's the exact same shotgun microphone that Stanley Kubrick used. Oh. And there's pictures of where you see Clockwork Orange and Barry Lyndon, and it's that same shotgun microphone that I have. Anyway, Leon had loaned it to me. He said, try this. You're not going to think of shotguns the same way. And I was out in the front, and I needed some sound of leaves. And there was just the right wind blowing in the afternoon, so I had this on the end of a boom pole, pointed into the leaves, and all I could hear was leaves. Planes would fly over, cars would go by. I couldn't hear anything. It was such a directional microphone. I just heard the leaves. And I'm doing this, and this young guy with tattoos on his arms, walking his dog. I've had this so many times in my business, and in news or something. People say, "Hey, can I ask you a question? What are you doing?" So he stops and he turns around, and that's what I'm figuring. And he says, "Excuse me, are you recording post-production Foley audio?" He had my attention. He did. And we got together within a week. We had gotten together, our families, and sitting together and having wine, him and Missy. And oh my God, it was like time disappeared. It was just so much fun. And I knew this guy was sharp. He was taking Pro Tools audio classes at Sac City. And that's what he wanted to get into. So I said, well, there's some film festival coming up, and people are making shorts, and they need crews. If you go in and you volunteer, you can be the sound man, and I'll give you my gear. And that's how it started. And I didn't see my microphone for 6 months, but that was fine. He was establishing himself. So I run into Jimmy at Rayleigh's every now and then, and it's just big smiles. I'm always so glad to see him. He's one of those people.
I know. I miss him. I keep trying to drag him into this, but some people are very, camera averse. But
he is such a great character and so committed.
The whole thing is you can take pride and ownership of having been in this area long enough to see the evolution of talent. That's right, John Jimenez. You were DP, right, John? On Blood, Guts, Bullets, and Octane?
Yeah.
Yeah, he just said I was there. He said I was there too.
Yeah, John had an Eclair NPR, and Carnahan needed a 16 millimeter guy, and so he came along and did that. Yeah, and that movie looks so great.
John was the DP on the very first movie that I produced. So we go like full circle with everybody. And the point that I want to make is all of us who have been in this region and have been working towards developing something that is, an economic footprint in the direction of filmmaking. We are the capital city of the state that is home of filmmaking, where we've got so many opportunities here. And now for the first time ever, we do have a mayor who gets it. We do have a city council who agrees and has funded for the first time ever a full-time film commission office in Sacramento.
Great.
And what we have already been able to do, and this is even with COVID, which obviously put a damper on things for several months. Production is just starting to come out, but meeting all of those rules of compliance and all of those guidelines of what has to be done to be safe. We're moving a little slower towards that end goal, but with Jennifer West as our film commissioner, with the backing of the city, with the timing, it's kind of like everything that we've put effort into all these years, we can see slowly coming into fruition. So you are a part of that. You know, the CFAA is a part of that. We have been here to, you know, bring people together and just, you know, create that kind of voice that allows us to advocate where it's important. And we've been successful doing that. And so I really love to honor the people who have been in there in the trenches, slugging along with us to make something happen. And you are definitely one of those people. So you're not only a friend of mine, you're a friend of filmmaking, and you know this region better than anybody. Whoop, suddenly I'm
I think this is me. I'm trying to clear off a couple of things. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. It's been, you know, from that first time that I was in one of the early film festivals that Jim Davis was involved in, and he'd seen the movie, and then he told me, "Oh, hey, we're going to screen it. Can you get us a DV copy?" And I mean, that just kind of showed me, wow, this really is possible, to be able to do something. And you know, you don't know where it's going to lead, because as with Carnahan, you know, he really wrote that thing, but you never know where any of these things are going to go. And I honestly don't know where any of it is going now. You know, I mean, I don't see anything that's happening outside of the web or what. I don't know. I
think we have to get a little further down the road.
Yeah.
Post COVID, certainly, but you know, I think Greta Gerwig has shown us what's possible.
Yeah.
You know, honestly, that is what put the fire under so many people to recognize that we had this amazing opportunity and we were not taking advantage of it. And she came in and made something so incredible that spoke so well of our region that it literally made everybody, you know. Oh, you have an interview with her. Here you go. This is the interview after the preview of
well, this was we shot all of this before. I don't know if this is going to play smoothly, but it's on YouTube.
Can we hear it, Reggie? Oh.
I guess not. Anyway, people can go to YouTube and see that. But, you know, and I've got to say, we were in. I was asked to. Edie Lambert asked me to shoot that.
Greta Gerwig, who is best known as a Golden Globe nominated actress. She attended St. Francis High School, and that's also one of the many local locations where she shot her movie. It's full of landmarks that people here will recognize. Tonight on the red carpet, she talked to KCRA3's Edie Lambert there about screening her movie for the hometown crowd.
It's incredibly moving. I'm a little teared up right now just having this happen. I've seen movies at Tower my whole life, and this movie is really a love letter to Sacramento, and to be able to have my family and friends and everyone I grew up with here, it's really beautiful.
But math isn't something.
Well, early reviews of the movie have been positive, with some already suggesting Oscar nominations. Lady Bird opens to the Sacramento area on November.
Look, I have to be honest with you. Edie had asked me to shoot that at the screening, and then to see the movie. So I was there. My back was out. I was in a brace, and I was filming it. And I said, "So Greta Gerwig, we were put first in line," and she said, "Yeah." And then I'm going to be emceeing it for her. I said, "What, do you know her?" Because I knew they both lived in East Sac. And do you know her or something? And she said, "I've never met her. I don't think I've even heard of her before." But they called me ahead of time. And then that shot where you see Greta Gerwig coming in and shaking Edie's hand. Greta had requested that Edie MC this and the screening that night, because Greta had grown up loving Edie Lambert. And I think this is so wild. She was a fan of Edie Lambert, and that's why she wanted Edie to do this so badly. That was the first time they knew each other. Yeah, and then I had to go and feed the footage back to the station so they could use it for that little bit. But And I tell you, the last thing I want to do is see a high school senior movie. You know, we've seen so many of those. And I thought, and then Edie said, once you feed that, come back up because I've saved a place right next to me for the movie. And it's like Greta Gerwig was like 2 seats away. I get in there, it's like, God, there's no way I can slip out of this. I'm stuck. I've got to stay and watch this movie. And after about 5 or 10 minutes, I thought, Billy Wilder could have written this. This is a great movie. I honestly thought that it should have won Best Picture because it was so new. You know, it was something that hadn't been done. And for anybody who thinks about, you know, local movies or poo-poos local movies, yeah, she had great actors in there. I mean, Tracy Letts, he won the Pulitzer Prize for Osage County. You know, the other actors involved, and I won't even try to pronounce the lead because it's Irish and I can never get it right.
Saoirse Ronan,
Yeah.
Laurie Metcalf.
Yeah.
I mean, it really, actually, I think it made stars out of several of those people who already had careers, but it truly, I mean, it accelerated their stardom, and it did so much for our city. And honestly, it was a catalyst that is going to, and that already has kind of propelled us to a different point and is going to continue to feed that because we've seen what's capable. And somebody like Greta has 3 movies that she wants to shoot here in Sacramento. You know, when she first came to the city council and said, I need help, what can you do? They basically were like, we got nothing. Mm-hmm. So at that point, she had to make other arrangements, and she shot, you know, in and around Sacramento as minimally as possible. And we can't let that happen again. If we have, you know, a filmmaker who can come to us and show that they have something that should be given time and attention and assistance as a community, I want us to be able to aid that and help that. So it's the efforts that all of us put into it that's going to eventually make that happen. You've been a part of this for so long. Are you writing anything? Are you thinking about next projects at all?
I have been, not a movie. I'm going to write another book, but one thing I've been doing is that I've been working on a novel. Everybody works on a novel, but I don't want to just say, I've got 200 pages of it, which is 1/3 of the finished thing.
Wow.
So I've been working on this thing for a number of years. And it's like when I made the first movie, it's like, you know, trying to figure out how to do that. And in this, I've been doing this and reading novels and studying the novel as a form and trying to find out something that can work for me. And so I just like to finish this. It's another one of the things. I want to prove that I can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I also love the story, and I love the people in it. And so
I want to know more. I want to know more. We'll have to do lunch. Yes.
When I have a draft done in a couple of years, I'll send it to you, and you can tell me what you think. Okay.
We'll have a socially distant, masked up meeting.
Yeah, so I am keeping active. I do think about wanting to do a movie, but I don't. We're going to have to see what the world looks like when this is over.
Yeah.
And, which is not going to be anytime soon. You know, hunker down for the long haul.
Well, what's happening to us now is a story in itself that I certainly hope somebody is capturing in some way so that we can go back and look after the fact and realize where we came from and now where we're going to. So I so appreciate you spending the time with us and sharing, you know, everything about you. Our region is filled with amazingly talented people. I'm lucky enough to know many of them, but this is the type of excellence that exists in Sacramento. You can see it in so many different places, And that's what we want to bring to you. That's why we are here. It's all about you, and it's all about what we can present to you and help inform you and educate you. Mike, I know, is somebody that, would be open to questions, or after the fact, go to his YouTube channel, look at some of his stuff. You may find that there's questions you have on things that he's done. But I can't thank you enough, Mike. And it was so fun to be able to hang out with you, even though we've got, people looking on. I have to watch my, language.
You don't have to watch anything.
No, usually I don't. Usually I don't do that.
Okay.
Well,
Well, this is the point where I can wish everybody a bon appetit. Have a good night.
Cheers.
Cheers.
All right. I love you, man. And it was so good to see you. We're going to end the broadcast now. So good night, everybody. Thanks for hanging on. Thanks for getting to know my friend Mike a little bit more. Okay. And stay safe out there, because we want to be back together again really soon.
All right.